and welcome back. Now, over the past few weeks, we have been talking about the do's and don'ts when it comes to writing a will, how to plan one, and even how to execute it.
Now, actually, appointing an executor is arguably the most important part of making a will, as he or she essentially oversees the distribution of your assets after you die.
So, why is it then that so many executors don't learn of their appointment until after the death of a person for whom they're supposed to act?
Now, you may be surprised to learn that 70% of estates end up being dealt with by solicitors as the family executors cannot cope.
Yes, so today we're here to talk about this topic and to learn more on how to appoint the right executor for your last will and testament. And of course, we've got with us our financial advisor, Mr. Yap Ming Hui, so it's over to you.
Good morning, everybody. You are now watching Financial Freedom Minutes with Yap Ming Hui. So today, I want to talk to you about how to appoint the right executor for your will. Now, first of all, what is an executor? As an executor is someone actually who's supposed to actually execute your distribution wishes, okay, by your appointment in your will. Now, there are 3 points I want to share with you today. Number one, I want to talk about what are the roles of the executor. Number two is that what are the criteria for appointing an executor, and number three, what are the choices you have when you appoint an executor. So number one, what are the roles of the executors? There are actually 6 roles that actually the executor need to play. Number one, to locate the will, because of course number one, the executor need to find where are the will and get possessed of the will, understand the content of the will. Number two is to locate and call in the assets, whether the assets are actually in Malaysia, in the bank accounts, properties, or outside the country. Number three, the executor must pay debt and all the liabilities. Say, for example, the mortgage loan, for example, the credit card debts, and also not forgetting your income tax. So basically, to be safe, the executor need to actually advertise, okay, in the newspaper, major newspaper, to inform the creditors that so-and-so has died. If actually he owes you some money, please come forward to actually claim your money. Number four, the actually executor supposed to actually distribute the asset according to wishes. Say, for example, the home go to A, okay, the cash actually in the bank go to B, and etc. Number five, if they are minor beneficiary in the will, okay, then to benefit from the will, then the executor must actually hold some of this asset until the beneficiary reach the age of majority, which is 18 years old, then pass it to them. Okay? And last but not least, number 6 is to prepare accounts. Okay? For example, the income, expenses, the asset and the liability for the whole estate. Okay? So this, I can see, is quite an onerous job for actually executor. So what number 2 points I'm going to discuss today is that what are the criteria that we need to consider when we actually appoint an executor. So basically there are 3. Number 1, the executor must be willing to act. Number 2, the person actually that you appoint must be trustworthy enough to do the work. Number 3, the person must be competent. So about willingness, I think it's very important for you to double check whether the executor that you actually appoint is willing to act upon your death. There's no point that when you actually die, the executor say, no, I'm not going to act, then you end up do not have an executor. Number 2, the person must be trustworthy, that you must trust the person will execute your wishes according to actually your will. You see, what happened is that this person that you actually appoint must be actually not only 100% you can trust to do the job, but also 200% to be sure. Otherwise, your will end up in a mess. Number 3, we're talking about competency. Ideally, this person should be a local person, a Malaysian who understands Malaysian law, who can deal with a lawyer, who can communicate with the lawyer. So that's where the competency actually involved. The third point I want to stress here actually is about who are the choices that you should consider when you appoint an executor. So there are mainly 2. Number 1, it can be an individual. Number 2, it can be a corporate. So for individuals, these people, of course, must be adult and also have sound mind in order to do the job. And what are the choices you can consider under individual? They could be like your wife or your husband. It could be your children. It could be your siblings, brother and sister. And it could be your parents if your parents are still actually around and still actually manage to do the job. Okay, but there are some actually advantages, of course. to appoint actually individuals, because number one, these are the people that you know, these are people that you trust. And also, because when you actually appoint these family members, then you don't really actually have to pay a single cent for professional fees. Okay? But the disadvantage of actually appointing individuals is that they may pass away. Then you end up do not have an executor. Number two, they may have some kind of relationship between the executor and beneficiary, and they may have some conflict among themselves. They may create some family problem. So they end up the will, the asset may not be distributed according to what you wish. And that's where they come to the second choice of what we call corporate. And come to actually corporate, actually these people actually they are not actually related to any beneficiary. So for that matter, they are licensed by the government to do the professional job of executorship, and they are accountable, and they are permanently there because they will not die. But of course, the disadvantage actually is that you need to pay some fee in order to do the job. So basically, always remember, smarter you, smarter money management. Okay, this is all I have to share today. Over to you, Joanne and Aisha.
Thank you, Mr. Yap, for that. But we
you.
do have a few questions for you, just listening in and picking up on what you said.
Yeah.
For example, one of the responsibilities of an executor would be to inform agencies, you know, this person was in debt to, for example, credit cards, etc., bank loans.
Yes.
What if he misses out one? Then what happens?
Yeah. So, for example, actually, if this person actually do not advertise. This is very important gesture is to show this person have advertised in a major newspaper to inform the creditors.
Right.
So if you have forgotten to do that, you know, and there's one outstanding creditors, then all the assets have been already distributed to the beneficiary.
So when you say advertise, would this be in the form of like an obituary, or is there a special section?
It's actually special sections or advertisement actually to show that, to say that so and so specifically has died, and please come forward. No, if you actually have actually money been actually loaned to this person. Okay. So if this actually advertisement had not been done, and actually all the assets have been distributed, then the executor got no more money left to be to settle the debt. Then this executor end up to be liable for
really?
Outstanding debt.
Right, so that's one of the reasons that they are a little bit hesitant to
be an executor.
And also hesitant to let the person know that you are the executor of my will.
Yes.
Anyway, you gave you know, several choices on who can be an executor.
Yeah.
You know, family or corporate, and you mentioned just then one of the disadvantages of family is, you know, of this person you know personally is problems could arise relationship-wise. Hence, your will be in a mess. Now, what do you do, or what can happen? What will happen if that happens? You know, if the executor, due to, you know, certain problems, does not execute your will according to how you want it to be, and then what?
Okay. What actually happened that you are already 6 weeks under.
Yes, you can't do anything about it.
You can't do anything about it.
People who are
what you talk about is what are the legal implications?
Yes.
Okay. Basically, actually, we got a case study before. There's one actually biscuit factory owners. He trusts a lot on his actually best friends. So he appointed his best friend to become the executor of the will, trusting the best friend will execute the will according to his wishes. But what happened is that this best friend of him actually has got the best relationship with the eldest son of him. So there's where that when actually he passed away, instead of executing the will, that this best friend actually teamed up with the eldest son to hold the will, and then to let the eldest son to continue to run the business, to run the asset. So then the second and the third son who got no choice but to go to the court, okay, to ask for injunctions to force the executor to do the work. So this is what actually happens, that when you have the executor, that you expect him to do the job, but when he doesn't do the job, it creates a lot of problems for the family. No, they got no choice but go to the court, and that's where there's a lot of drama actually coming up.
Mr. Yap, is there a time limit in which the express wishes of the deceased has to be carried out within a will?
Yeah. Actually, legally, of course, the executor needs to actually act in the soonest possible time.
Right.
But what actually I shared with Aisha just now is that the problem is that when the executor sit on it, or intentionally actually delay on it, then the other beneficiary got no choice.
But there isn't, like, for example, say, if after a year, you know, this person's wishes are not carried out and the will is not executed, there is no penalty, or the will doesn't expire.
That actually only would need to for the beneficiary to take the action to the court.
Import, right?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
Now, okay, in cases of, I'm still on, actually choosing potential executors, because this is, it sounds like quite an arduous task, so what happens, or can you actually have two people or a backup plan when it comes to your executor, because your executor could pass on before you, and let's just say you fail to change it in your will, or in the case where they're overwhelmed and they need help or something like that.
Yes. So what actually happens is that in Malaysia law is that you can actually appoint a joint executor. So which means that if you don't trust one person to the job, you can actually appoint 2 persons jointly to act as executor, or 3 persons or 4 persons. Okay, but maximum actually is 4 persons. Okay. So actually, of course, the advantages, like what you mentioned just now, just in case one person die, there's still another 3 persons that standing by there to actually act. But the disadvantages here actually is that you may need to get a consensus of all 4 of them to act on certain things. For example, say,
so it might take a bit longer,
so you may get a kind of consensus and agreement among themselves to act on anything.
Okay, so if all your executors fail you, say you've had your 1 executor and 3 backup plans, and they all fail you, then what happens?
Fail in what sense?
Fail in that they cannot execute the will. Then what happens to...
Okay, so for example, actually, assuming I think in the extreme situation, all 4 that you actually appointed all pass away.
Okay.
So for example, then you will end up a will whereby you do not have an executor. So in this case, you may have a will, okay, but you don't have an executor. So in this case, then the beneficiary will need to go to court, okay, to apply, okay, for a new executor to be appointed. Okay, so that's where the whole process becomes complicated. Okay?
Right.
So that's why you normally want to actually either appoint a joint executors, okay, or sometimes we can do also, you can actually put a substitute executor. So another layer executor, okay, or maybe 2 layers or substitutions to be sure, okay. Or alternatively, like what I mentioned just now, you can appoint a corporate executor. So we actually using a corporate trustee to act as an executor. Then this corporate trustee normally will not die. Because they actually
Is that the case with most wills in Malaysia? Or because we've just said that 70% of executors don't carry out their duties, and then it's left to the solicitors.
Yes. So that's why actually now more and more Malaysians actually realize that to appoint their own family members to become executor may not be actually a very right choice.
Right.
No, very wise choice. So that's why actually now actually the more and more people actually starting to actually appoint the corporate executor either as the first choice of executor or as a substitute. So actually, I would normally advise a client, actually, the best way to actually appoint executor is that appointing either your spouse, because you should trust your spouse, isn't it, to execute your wishes. Then put a corporate trustee as a substitute. So just in case your spouse passed away together with you, then at least you have a corporate trustee as a backup to execute professionally, and accountable.
For a fee, of course.
For a fee, of course.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Yap. That was quite interesting. I'm sure we'll have you back on next week to tell us more about our financial path.
Yes. All right. I do remember it's not something we plan, of course. You don't know when you're going to move or pass on, but it's always great to have a plan in place. And I think that's definitely the way to go. Nominate your spouse as executor and have a backup, a corporate trustee as backup. Anyway, if you want more information or if you want to ask Mr. Yap anything, you can always visit his website. It's www.yapminghui.com. Okay. Or if you want to email Mr. Yap and ask him a question, you can do so at enquiries@yapminghui.com or SMS even. You can SMS him at 012-754-1698. Okay, it's time to take another quick break here on The Breakfast Show.